Clay, I'm sure you were excited to see Gary Graham's name in the credits and then his beautiful face on screen when he showed up on the view screen for the first time, because as you've always said, Soval is your favorite Star Trek character of all time. So I'm sure you were extremely excited to see Soval in the flesh again, except Ocampa in flesh this time.
Yes. Well, you answered the question for me. I knew I recognized him from somewhere, but I didn't do bother to do the work to find out why.
I was sitting with Amy. I wouldn't say she was watching it, but I was sitting with her as I was watching it, and he came on the screen, and I was like, "Amy, who's that actor?" She's like, "I have no idea." I was like, "Come on, like we've been watching something for a while, or we watched something recently where he was in it all the time. It's like, what was it?" She's like, "I have no idea who the fuck that guy is." And it's like, and it's starting to get mad. It's like, come on, you can't tell me you don't know who he is. We watched something. He was in it all the time. Then the episode ended. I looked it up and I was like, "Oh, it's Gary Graham from Enterprise." She would not. Yeah. she would not have known who that was. So I felt bad, but I didn't apologize because I still think she should know these things. So Gary Graham is in this one. He is Tanis. I think his name is Tanis in this one. I'll look that up and review if that's the case. But yeah, he last we saw him, he was Soval, the recurring character in Star Trek Enterprise, the Vulcan, that we criticized for his Vulcan portrayal. Although I think he's better in this episode than he was in Enterprise's Soval, although he's not playing a Vulcan. He was also going to be, he was a contender for not just Sisko, but Janeway as captain.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, he was a contender for both of those roles. And the Wikipedia says that they decided to go for an African-American and a female, so that knocked him out of both contenderships, I guess. Mm-hmm. I don't really see him as Sisko at all. I don't know.
I honestly, I would be curious to know exactly how far down the line he got. Because, I mean, he's fine. He's just kind of like, just a guy.
They seem to like him. Like the producers seem to like him for some reason, because he kept getting all these chances, and he's in a few things, and then he's in Enterprise at the end. He's not. Yeah, he doesn't captivate me. I don't know really what. Maybe he's just a great talker or something when he's behind the scenes.
He's a good locker room guy.
Yeah, good locker room guy. It's
no, he seems more like a visiting admiral than a captain for the show.
Yeah. Would you? I mean, before we get into it, like just a quick thumbs up or thumbs down. Did you like his performance in this episode?
I did. Yeah, I think his performance might be the thing that kind of holds this episode together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it starts off very promisingly and then gets really weird. So
no faults of Gary Graham's. Yeah, I thought he was. I didn't like him as Soval whatsoever, but I thought he was good in this one. And this one is Cold Fire, which is the 10th episode of the second season of Star Trek Voyager. It came out on November 13th, 1995. Teleplay goes to Brennan Braga. Story credit goes to Anthony Williams, directed by Cliff Bowl. In-universe dates is 49164.8, which is 2372. In this episode called Cold Fire, while attempting to make contact with the caretaker's mate, who may have the ability to send Voyager home, the crew discovers a colony of Ocampa, whose representative has an interest in Kes in helping her explore her telepathic powers. They had a little intro here just to remind you that this had happened in Voyager previously, that there was a caretaker character and he had a mate out there somewhere. So that, just so you're not totally confused as to what's going on, we'll lay it out for you in the first 5 seconds.
Yeah, I was not expecting so the thing about this episode that was interesting to me is it really kind of felt like more like a season finale.
Yeah.
Given the content and also given the fact that they do a 10 months ago previously on let's jump back to things that happened at the beginning of the show.
Right.
Thing. Did you feel like that the recap was necessary? I feel like they kind of cover that shit in dialogue anyway, so I don't really know if it's too necessary.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessary because they talk about it quite frequently. I think it's more indicative of how Voyager is different from even DS9 at this point, in that it's really not like these things aren't being touched on in every episode as you go through the season. So you might be forgiven, like maybe it's forgivable, or maybe it's just a good idea to give that little bit of a refresher. I didn't think was necessary, but it's certainly a Voyager thing to do, I think.
Yeah, it reminded me a bit of the way they used to do this stuff on Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Mm-hmm.
Check that off your bingo card.
Mm-hmm.
Where at a certain point, there was so much stuff that had happened over 3 or 4 seasons, or even 5, 6, or 7 seasons, that they would always do a previously on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and you could tell what was going to happen in the episode based on the things they reminded you about.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh, this guy, I remember that character, I remember her, I remember that plot point. Okay, I think I can figure out what this episode's going to be about.
Right. It's semi the same here. I mean, I guess the little bit of trivia to get out of the way is that this caretaker mate Suspiria. I don't remember if we talked about this in the pilot. It was designed
interesting choice for a name, which we can get into. But
yeah, there will be a Patreon comment. I'll let you read the first comment because it touches on that. I think that what you're going to say. The character or the caretaker mate was devised as a get out of jail card if the concept was failing for the show.
Interesting.
So it was thrown in last minute as the pilot, as there's this other character out there who's exactly the same as the character who brought you here. So if you ever start going down in the ratings and people would start checking out of the show, we can get you back home by finding that character. And
yes.
To spoil things for you, this character never returns. So this is Suspiria's final appearance, first and only appearance on the show. And I guess you can take that as a vote of confidence that they like the concept at this point because they kind of washed it away. Who knows?
I mean, I guess, but they don't make the show like they like the concept.
No. They also technically don't really kill the Suspiria character. Like it can come back. Yeah.
True. Yeah. Yeah. It's just knowing that it is kind of interesting because it's like, it's not like every episode of this show has just been digging deep into the concept that they've set up, and it's like they're you know what, don't even need this safety net. This thing is just running on high octane fuel, like a perfectly well oiled machine.
Coked up Brandon Braga in the back room, just churning out scripts. It's exactly
it's like I applaud them for getting rid of the safety net if that's what this is, because why not? But it's not exactly like everything that's come before this has been such a vote of confidence for this concept that you can see why they would want to jettison this thing.
Yeah,
I'm actually a little bit surprised that they even returned to it.
I am
frankly.
too. Yeah, I feel you could have just had it in the pilot and forgotten about it, and it would never. Like I think is. What you're saying, it almost makes sense as a first season finale if this was the thing. You know?
Yes. Yeah. I wonder if it was more like due to they wanted to do the Ocampa stuff.
Right.
And they had to figure out how
to find more Ocampa out there.
Yeah. And so they're like, well, we've got this idea we can burn. There's a space station involved. There was a space station involved last time.
Yeah.
Let's just do that.
They're lucky they find literally everything they want right in the straight line to home to Earth in this show. Everything is just on their way.
So that was the thing that was weird to me about this because, again, part of the concept is they're flying home. I guess maybe they're zigzagging here and there. But I don't know how far they have traveled at this point.
Yeah, in 10 months.
In 10 months, they're far enough out that they come across this space station that no one else has mentioned before. Like nobody else clearly knows that this exists.
Yeah.
But when they get there, so what's his name?
In the movie,
Tanis,
I think Tanis. It's Tanis. Yeah.
Tanis is like, we've heard all about your ship. Everybody talks about your ship. All you do is kill people.
Ship of death.
And I was just
coming for us.
I was like, are they just reading do they get the newspaper there or something? Or
the emails go at light speed faster than the ship just to get out there. Just to let them know.
Like why do they know about Voyager at all?
Yeah.
Whatever. It's not that big of a deal, but it's just one of those things where it's like, I don't know how deep into this concept we're getting if the idea is that they are just flying through deep space trying to get home.
Yeah.
But they keep running into stuff that kind of makes their universe very small.
I feel it's pretty distracting. Yeah, I think it's one of those things I should be able to ignore, but I keep it makes me want to go back and dig through the older series to see what the longest stretch of time that someone traveled at high warp was and how far they made it in that time.
Yeah.
Because they've been traveling for a year, basically, and they're still bumping into things that people know, which seems like I don't know. There must be some sort of Wikipedia that tells you how long it would take to travel across the Federation or whatever at high warp speed. So,
it makes me think about one of my pet peeves of Discovery, which is that Discovery was supposed to be in like deep space, yet every other episode someone just showed up on a shuttlecraft.
Right, you can always find the ship.
Yeah, and it's just like, why even bother bringing it up if you're just going to do this?
Yeah. Would you do you want to start with, like, is the Ocampa a good place to start here? What tickled your fancy about this one that you want to discuss? Be it the Ocampa, the Suspiria, the Caretaker mate, the tutelage of Tuvok and Cass, whatever it is.
I want to start with how when damn it, what's the hell his name?
Tanis.
Yeah. Tanis. I don't know. I can't remember that. When Tanis was like, I've sent out a message in subspace to Suspiria. She'll respond within 47 hours.
Yep. Not 2 days, 47 hours.
47 hours. Oddly specific.
Well, I mean, the Ocampans have a strong grasp on Earth time signatures.
Apparently.
They know years that they know solar years, and they know hours of the day on an Earth day. I think that and then when they're like, should we tell you when she contacts us? He's like, don't bother, I know everything. And then they page him later, and he's like, I know, Suspiria's here, I'm on my way.
There was honestly, my favorite thing about this episode, and I know I'm not answering the question that you asked me, but
it's fine.
The thing that I loved in this episode was when they figure out that this thing is nearby, and Tuvok is just like, Captain, the last time we encountered this thing, it almost destroyed us. Would you like me to prepare a nerve gas that we can take this thing out with if we have to?
And to her credit, she says yes, and he builds the killer gun that can take her down. Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought that. I thought there was going to be more of like a
torturing children sequence
something.
with Tuvok, yeah.
But no, it's just like, no, Tuvok's being prepared by preparing a very targeted weapon. I guess it sounded more lethal when he was explaining it, but I guess based on the way it worked, it wasn't lethal. But,
no, it's just like a blue phaser. It's not red. It's just a blue one.
Yeah. This is a long way of me saying it. We can start wherever you want.
Well, so my impression while watching this was I was intrigued more than I was interested by this one. And
sure,
it's like when it was over, when it was over, it made me wonder why I was so intrigued by it in the first place. And I don't think it's a bad episode. I think it's actually probably the best episode we've seen in a while, really. But it does this thing where I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to grab onto as interesting in this one, because it feels like a lot of it is fleshing out the memory alpha page for the Ocampans. Like you give them a little bit of facts about them or something, but I don't really understand why Tanis wants Kes to stay with her, with them. Yeah. I don't understand what's going on that station. I don't understand if the Caretaker is abusing the Ocampans or what the Caretaker's mate is trying to do with them or anything like that. And the episode itself doesn't really care to answer any of that stuff. So what you're left with is a kind of boilerplate Star Trek episode, which is about a person who finds their family and is kind of torn about whether or not they should go back with them. But at the same time, I don't think that this episode does anything compelling to make me care about it. But at the same time, I didn't think it was all that bad, you know?
Yeah, I actually, I would say the first half of this, I was actually pretty into it. And I thought, I was like, oh, this is actually pretty good. And again, I couldn't really put my finger on why. I was intrigued by it. I think it was right around the time where Kes almost scanners Tuvok. where I was like, okay, what's going on?
I thought you think that was the high point.
I didn't say I didn't like it, but sure. It's just like, as far as this episode goes, I feel like from that point it just gets really squishy.
Okay.
And I'm not really sure what it's about anymore, because you've got this kind of interesting intrigue about the Ocampans, and he's like, yeah, we're all 14 here, or my dad lived to be 20.
Yeah.
So there is this kind of
the future is wide open for us.
Yeah, the future of AD 809 on Earth. You do get this element of like, oh, maybe Kes is going to go back to her people and stuff, and like that's kind of interesting.
Has a moment with Neelix where she's like, Neelix, you can come too. And you think that's going to build to something where he's not allowed to go, is what I was expecting.
Right. Yeah. And then they start getting into telepathy and telekinesis and turning Kes into like, they turn Kes into like the Dark Phoenix or something. And she toasts all of the stuff in the hydro, whatever.
She burns all the plants. The potato plants. Yeah.
And like from that point, I don't know. Then the giant centipede shows up, and like it was cool stuff. Like I was kind of interested by the weirdness of it.
Yeah.
But I wasn't really engaged on like a story level. Like when Janeway comes in and she into the engine room and nobody's in there, and then Torres's bloody nose drips onto her shoulder.
Yep.
And she looks up and they're all floating. That was pretty cool. That was like creepy and weird and stuff. But yeah, ultimately, if the whole thing was just a plot to get revenge on Voyager, that's not super satisfying, and the way it ends isn't super satisfying, where the thing just goes, you let me live, and she's like, yeah, we let you live. Well, screw you guys. And she just leaves. And then Tanis is like, take me with you. And then that's it. Like, I don't know. Are there now 299 Ocampan back on the space station wondering where their buddy went? Like, what's going on?
I don't know. I got the impression she's still going to take care of them, although it's never explained why they take care of the Ocampans. Like,
I don't know.
It's wide open. It's not like there's contradictions. It's just that it feels like there's this attempt to flesh out what this is, but it's also kind of being punished by the Voyager setup, which is that we can't hang out with the Ocampans or whatever for that long, right? Like, you're not going to meet them at a certain point anymore. So you run into that kind of issue. I think that like, it's noble what they're trying to do, and I genuinely like Kes as a character, but all the shows, I feel like all the Star Trek shows after DS9 have not really been good at setting up new species for me to become invested in.
Yeah.
I just don't know what these, like, they're just this sort of species of weird facts. Like, they have a very short lifespan.
Yes.
They are
enslaved
by caretaker aliens for some reason. They have telekinetic powers, and maybe this would have been cool in the 90s to me, but I'm just really not interested in telekinetic powers at this point. It doesn't, I don't find it, I feel like it's been done so much, and it's hard to hold it against the show because it did come out in 1995, but I don't know. This is not an intriguing power set to me, really.
Yeah, or at least it's not portrayed in a very intriguing, like it's nothing anyone who's watched sci-fi or genre stuff hasn't seen before.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a little bit interesting that it's literally like the way that he gets her to that point where he's like, no, just think about the molecules heating up. And I mean, I guess it shows you the danger of this is why Professor X's school is necessary, because like she gets a handle on those powers and she doesn't know what to do.
Yeah.
I did think it was hilarious how Tanis kept picking the most intense moment to just peace out for the night.
Yeah.
where he's like, good, you've managed to bring the fire through the molecules and heat your drink up up to a boiling point. It is an intensely dangerous power that only the most talented Ocampan can wield. Anyway, that's enough for today. I'll talk to you tomorrow. And then he just left.
It's the same with after she fries Tuvok's brain. He's just like, well, I got to get back to work.
Yeah. Good stuff. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
We'll talk about this tomorrow. Yeah,
We'll talk again in 47 hours.
I think that's it's not really even this episode. I think that's a big weakness of Voyager, because Voyager always gets kind of kicked down and beat up on for being a TNG clone. And I was thinking that I'd be fine with Voyager aping TNG plots. But what I really think is tough for this show is that it doesn't develop the character storytelling in any way post TNG. There's just no development in how these stories work out. So even outside of the Ocampans and the sort of no one reacting to new power sets and new information in a way that feels like it's a believable response to this ultimate power that they're now in witnessing. Mm-hmm. Even the fact that when they find the Caretaker, it's like any other Tuesday. They're like, well, maybe this thing will send us back. That'd be great. And they go off, and it's like there are no scenes in this show where characters are like, I can't believe we have a chance to go home.
Right. Yeah.
It's just so weird.
They don't talk about it at all. We've talked many times about how the thing that makes any of these shows good, but specifically Deep Space Nine good, is that a lot of the characters on Deep Space Nine have pretty clearly defined ethos and belief sets. So you know how these characters are going to either agree with each other or disagree with each other, and that's where the interesting drama and conflict of your show comes from. An episode like this feels a lot more like Enterprise, where it's a weird mix, because the characters on this show, I feel like, do actually have interesting point of views, except for Tom Paris, who apparently was not invited to show up for this one.
He's in this one at some point, isn't he?
Is he? I don't think he is. Is he in it at all?
He has something about the ship's hull is turning into molecule soup or something.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he just drives them there and then is not in the rest of the episode. But everybody in this show, you kind of have a more or less of an idea of what their ethos is. But when you get to a situation like this where you would think these things would generate conversation or conflict, it just don't. Even with the Kessin and Neelix stuff, they don't even, there was more discussion between them about whether or not Tom Paris was hot for Kes than there was this idea that she might leave the ship and go back to an Ocampan space station. That is it is. Yeah, nobody's really talking about it. The idea that they could be sent home, nobody's talking about it. It's just
Kess's
tough.
Powers, there's no gossiping about her.
Kess's power. Nobody seems to when she goes to the sick bay and apologizes for being late, and she's like, "I'm sorry, I'm late. Tuvok was teaching me all about telepathy and mind reading and listening to people's thoughts." I was expecting the doc to be like, "What?" But,
right? Just write that down.
Or offer some retort like, "Well, Kes, there's never been any proven scientific backing or explanation for anything you're talking about. There's nothing like that where he's the hard fact medical robot. He's not going to believe in telepathy, or you know what I mean, that kind of thing."
Yeah. Yeah.
But he's just like, well, don't be late next time, I suppose.
Yeah.
I did like the line about you'd think a Vulcan would have better respect for being punctual. That was pretty good. But to go back to what you're talking about the lack of memorable aliens, I think what you said is exactly right, where they're just a collection of facts. And if you look back at Deep Space Nine or Next Generation, or even go all the way back to TOS if you want
TOS
to.
Too.
But, the aliens that stick around are the ones with a point of view.
Yeah.
Or an ethos, and the ones that don't are the ones that are just people got some bumps on their face and they've got a history that people like to talk about.
Right.
That we come from a planet of trees, and if we don't cut the trees down, then we're going to die. It's like, okay, great.
They have a history, but not a culture. Yeah.
But it's the ones that have a point of view are the ones that stick around, because that's what makes any thing or any person really interesting on a show, right?
Yeah.
It's like, what's their point of view in the situations you put them in?
Yeah. I think it's... And they've had a lot of chances after that, but I don't think any of them are really all that memorable. And I think that the Ocampans here just... I struggle to see how you can turn this into something interesting, because they didn't even really put down any breadcrumbs about like what's going on this space station. Like they're being medically experimented on in some ways to expand their life and stuff like that.
They really moved away from that stuff real quick.
Yeah.
Where they just got Tanis on the ship, and he was like, what if I just went with you and we never talked about my space station again?
Would that be cool?
Wake me up in 43 hours on the dot.
Yeah. It's tough. And because I think there's maybe it's just because we've gone through a long stretch of relatively bad Voyager episodes that I thought that this one was intriguing just because it was at least developing that somehow. I just don't like the Dark Phoenix powers all that much. I don't find it super interesting. And, just to bring it full circle, what you're saying, like, it's not even interesting in the Dark Phoenix way where the other characters acknowledge that there is now a being with incredible power in their midst that can't control it. Like, it's a lot of responsibilities put on Tuvok here to just rein this in somehow.
Well, even so, like at the end of the episode, she basically goes, yeah, he taught me how to use those powers, but honestly, not really feeling it, so I'm just not going to do it anymore.
Right.
And Tuvok is like, I mean, it's always going to be in there, and she's like, yeah,
I'll keep it bottled up.
Yeah.
Works for you.
Yeah, so it's like, what's the... I don't know what the point of introducing this stuff is if you're just going to toss it like that. And, like, nobody cared she cooked all of the food that they were growing.
Yeah.
Like, that's... You'd think someone would notice or care after she... Her powers developed in the form of leaning on the digital color time button for a little bit in that scene.
And they're distracted by the caretaker mate, who has relatively little to do with anything by the end of it, and I think that what makes this one get by for me is that it is vaguely creepy in a lot of in some scenes. Some scenes are pretty actually disturbing. The Tuvok brain melting scene is pretty disturbing. So it has that going for it. I think that it has a little bit of an energy just because there's a goal in mind from the start of like find the caretaker's mates and send us home, even though no one really wants to talk about it. And then it just has decent scenes between Tanis and Kes, but they ultimately aren't all that. There's not that much there to chew on really between the two of them, because I don't understand why he wants Kes. He doesn't. I'm not wrong. He never says that, Kes, you're the most powerful Ocampan we've ever seen, right? He never mentions anything like that, right?
No, not that I can remember. He seems to just, she's just out there, and she's one of them. I guess that's enough for him.
Yeah.
But there doesn't seem to. That's the thing that was so strange, is when they get into that ulterior motive scene where he walks into his room and he's talking to the disembodied slug voice.
Yeah. You can have the girl. I want the ship.
Right. I was like, okay. Creepy. I mean, it worked in Empire Strikes Back when he has that first scene with the Emperor.
Yep.
But, like, what does he want with the girl other than just the fact that she's Ocampan?
Yes. No.
Unclear.
It seemed like a power thing that you'd bring up. Like, that's the reason why. And also... the caretaker seemed to have a lot of power. Is it explained why she can't just crush the ship with like a snap of her fingers?
I was thinking like it would have. I mean, this would have been a lot of very expensive and even weirder. But I mean, I kind of feel like they should have gone weirder with it. But like this caretaker thing, have we seen the caretaker in slug form? Did we see that in the pilot?
No, he was like a big blob, a big jellyfish blob when we saw him in the first one.
Okay, because like. If you run into this creature that exists on like a different dimensional vibration or whatever the explanation is, And then you go into its space, and then it shows up on your ship. I feel like you could get some really creepy imagery out of that to have this basically like the end of Sunshine, you know,
right.
When the guy comes back on the ship and he's like the sun monster.
Yeah.
And then if you want, put Kes up against the sun monster with her new powers, and
yeah,
she torches the thing or something. I don't know.
Yep. Yeah, it's a good point.
It just feels also separate from each other.
It does. Would you say? I haven't gotten a general sense of whether or not you like this one. Did you? I mean, it's kind of a final thoughts thing, but like, you maybe sound a little bit more negative than me, but I'm just curious about it.
No, I did actually enjoy the episode, but I do think it is like a tale of two halves. Where while I still enjoyed it for what they were showing me, I don't think it holds together narratively very well.
Yeah.
It kind of seems like they get to a certain point and they just kind of don't really know what to do, and so they just start throwing stuff at the wall, which is fine. You know, sometimes it can be more fun if it's fun enough. It doesn't matter if it makes any sense.
Yeah.
But you know, I'm never gonna thumbs down Scanner's special effects of people bleeding out of their nose while someone looks at them wide-eyed and starts like shaking their face. How did they get her pupils so dilated?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't notice.
Every single close-up on Kes, her pupils were dilated like she was 6 beers deep.
Wow. Just context, I suppose, at that point?
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, because I was trying to figure out if it was the light, but I was like, the light can't be that low. The light would need to be so low for her eyes to get that dilated. And they're probably, I mean, you need light on these shows. They usually blow them out because you need so much light.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it was a trip. Maybe that's just how her eyes look, and I've just never noticed before. I don't know. Maybe they use contacts. Who's to say?
It's the fire within. We talked about casting the Ocampans or Ocampans, whatever they're pronounced. Anything else that we've left out of this one? I think that pretty much covers it. It's I guess maybe just some random scenes that I thought were funny was Kes. Oh, like at the very start where Tuvok is training Kes and Kes hears Neelix's thoughts. They're like, let's just check in on your boyfriend to see what he's thinking about. I thought it was genuinely kind of funny, but I really desperately wanted that to end with just like, she listens to him talk and then she says, my God, I'm dating an idiot or something. Like there's some kind of like realization that goes on, but as it was, I thought it was a pretty funny scene, even if it is, a little bit invasive to just randomly hear the thoughts of Neelix as he's going about his day. Nothing else other than that, I don't think. I'm just briefly going through my notes. I don't really think I see anything else about it. Yeah.
I think we kind of hit most of it.
I think it's important because Kes's pyrotechnics are going to develop, just so you know. Like this becomes her thing. The Caretaker does not reappear, but this Kes power system or power level or whatever is going to be something that continues along with her. So we'll see if that develops in any kind of a way. It's just that I think my final point on it will just be that because there's a lack of character work, Kes's powers are not super meaningful to me. You know, like I don't know the Jean Grey storyline that well enough, but at least like I can imagine something where the Dark Phoenix ability there is at least some kind of like it's like a semi-sacrifice, or I'm probably mistaking it or something. But there's like a little bit of like a losing yourself to it, which this episode doesn't get into at this point. But you need something like that to make it interesting, because otherwise it's just a sort of a child with a loaded gun in a room, which is, you know, kind of interesting as it's happening, but there's not really a lot to talk about once it's over.
Yeah, they don't really have enough time to get into anything really interesting there.
Should be thematic, I guess is my point. Like there should be, Kes's powers should be some sort of foil to her as a character, you know, which it gives her a different angle or a different set of characteristics or dialogue that she can have with characters, but it doesn't really have that there. It's just the danger of having the ability is all that's left in the episode.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, at the end of it, she doesn't really... Again, they kind of save it a little bit with that last line from Tuvok, but honestly, Kes doesn't seem concerned enough that it really lands.
Yeah.
And seems like, oh, now she has to live with this power that she needs to control. It's just sort of kind of a bit of a throwaway. You know?
Yeah, it's the kind of one that like the episode should maybe not should, but like you could see it ending in a vaguely Inception-y way where Tuvok leaves her quarters or something and she looks at something and it like something boils or something in the background, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It just to show that there's a little bit of uncontrollable danger that's still lingering there, even if Kes isn't aware of it.
Right. Yeah.
But no, they just continue their training. So that's it. We'll go to Patreon thoughts. Thanks, everybody, for listening to the content. We'll go now to Patreon thoughts, where people leave their thoughts at patreon.com/the Pensky File, which is the place to support the show. And you get extra stuff. We covered Alita Battle Angel recently. Clay and Amanda are going through the second string of Stephen King movies. All that stuff is up there. And you can also leave your comments about upcoming episodes of Star Trek Voyager, and we read them. And here, how do I make... It's been so long since I've been on Discord. Where the hell is your little face? There it is. I'll send this one to you, Clay. This is the first one from Kyle Barrett, and I think this is going to reference what you were talking about at the start of things here, Clay, so you can read this one.
Okay. I have to figure out where it's going to show up here.
The very last sentence, I'd assume.
Aha. Cold Fire. Soval himself, Gary Graham, joins the cast and hopefully gave Tim Russ some Vulcan acting tips while on set. Tuvok is again superb, and I enjoyed him preparing a weapon to use against Suspiria almost immediately. His own Vulcan hello being a giant hypodermic needle-looking thing that shoots lasers at a little girl. My kind of Star Trek episode. Mm-hmm. It does harken back to my favorite moment of The Next Generation, where Riker fries that little girl with a phaser. This one is very predictable, and I could guess every twist and turn except for maybe the weird fire orgasm, but Jennifer Leon puts in a good performance. The highlights are the horror influences from Carrie Kess to the little girl being just a few bone breaks away from going full-blown Vecna on Janeway. And while Suspiria got away, maybe Tenebrarum and Lacrimarum can help Voyager in the future. 3 Dario Argento references out of 5. It is a strange choice for a name. It was nice to see it, but I was kind of wishing that every time they said it, I was kind of wishing that the Goblin music would kind of fade up in the background.
Suspiria is the name of one of his films, right? Have you covered that?
Yes.
Have you covered it?
We have not covered Suspiria yet. No,
okay.
I'm looking forward to it though, because that's a banger. So.
Yeah, it is a weird reference. I'm just my point of reference is Disturbia, the Rhiannon song from like a decade ago. I keep singing that when I hear Suspiria. But if you guys want to listen to the coverage of Suspiria, you can subscribe to Real Rotten Horror Picture Show. I'll go to the next one here. Thank you, Kyle. Taxel Bear says the Caretaker species returns, but not in an episode designed to end the series, but instead in one where Kes and the Ocampa get some development. We finally get some more information on the Ocampa's psychic powers and find out that they have more than one culture. Refreshing. Also, Kes almost incinerating Tuvok alive was horrifying. It was horrible. Next one is Jaron Hatch, who has this to say.
Cold Fire. It's not saying much about this season when a perfectly average episode feels like a breath of fresh air after the last few we've gotten. Fun ideas, intriguing ideas, and good moments, but nothing really amounts to anything, and we're essentially right back to the status quo when it's all said and done. Who knows? Maybe the next Caretaker episode will be super awesome. It's not like they'll completely forget about this one like I already have, right? 2.5 boiled Tuvok heads out of 5.
2.75.
Sorry, 2.75. Sorry. We don't work in quarters. We just work in halves here.
Benjamin Espinosa says, Cold Fire, this is a good Kes episode, and like a lot of Voyager, it's a little bit creepy. What makes this one and a lot of Voyager's better episodes work is the unpredictability of the stories. They do not end where you think they will. This one had a lot of threads happening at once, but they all tied together nicely and pushed Voyager's arc forward, and not all resolved in a nice bow. 4 boiled Tuvoks out of 5. Next one is Patrick Seba with a little bit of poem for you.
I will say, the one thing that I was curious about is why nobody seemed to care while they were doing this super secret or like super intense telekinesis study that Neelix was just chilling out, like cooking spaghetti or something in the background.
Sitting in the background. Yep.
I thought that was going to become like a point of contention or something, but it did not.
No, it ties into our Neelix. Like the characters don't talk about it. Like this episode, there's a lot of ways that you could go with this one. Whether it's not Voyager's trying to get home, whether it's about Kes trying to decide if she wants to go there, whether it's about Neelix's jealousy or not wanting to let go of Kes, and they just kind of dodge all the stories. Interestingly, it is, as you were saying, it feels very much like an Enterprise thing. Like this is Braga's weakness, I think, as a writer, is that he tends to seem to want to do this a lot, which is to avoid actually getting into anything that the story might be about, and instead focus on the details of it.
Yeah.
This is Patrick Sebo, sorry.
Cold Fire. Enriching her life, Kes is no more blind. The goal, not the task. Flambe Tuvok in kind. Janeway shoots a child with Ocampa stockpiled. Tease me with fingers of your mind. 3 hearts forged of barbarism and violence out of 5.
That's what's in their hearts. Aaron Million says, finally, we have an episode that actually tries to develop Kes instead of keeping her two-dimensional as either the doctor's assistant or Neelix's love interest. Gary Graham is good here, and so is Jennifer Leon. And the scene with Tuvok almost dying was good. Yet the ending was predictable. So far, this show has some good concepts, but it's just not firing on all cylinders very often. 3 burnt-up nurseries out of 5. Why did it do that? There we go. Next one is Jonas. Coming in with a copy, paste, insert, click. There you go.
Cold Fire. There is a clear parallel to Odo and the Changelings with the Ocampa, especially when the Ocampan ambassador mentions that all the Ocampans are connected in ways Kes cannot imagine. There was excellent drama in the near burning of Tuvok and the sinister-sounding little girl Caretaker. I bet Wes gives it a very strong 3. It's very good, yet not quite the I'd show it to someone to give them a taste of Voyager category. 3 Neelix ear hairs out of 5.
We'll see if you are right by the end of the episode. Latte Librarian says, Coldfire, the planet Ocampans got a raw deal. This Caretaker seems way better, giving them more than double the lifespan and superpowers. 3 reminds me of Scanners out of 5. Changeling is the next person who is bringing up a Carrie reference in this one, it looks like. There you go.
Cold Fire. This is the most I have been entertained. I guess I don't have to keep saying the name, but I just want to represent. I just want to represent everyone's writing as they wrote it. You know,
I like to do it just because it's like it brings us back to our radio roots, where I have to keep reminding people who are just tuning in what the fuck we're talking about. That's why I do it.
You're joining us at 9:23 p.m. with Cold Fire. This is the most I've been entertained by Voyager in a long time. Gray Graham is great in this. He really plays seductive and skeevy well, and his dialogue about beyond the physical and beyond the flesh sounds like something out of the head of David Cronenberg. It didn't stick the landing, but it is better than falling flat on your face on takeoff. Also, Tuvok mentions he has dark thoughts sometimes. Foreshadowing. 4 fire starters out of 4 fire starters out of Carry to the Rage.
Clay, I got this crazy news story I want to read to you. A man in Indiana had his dick cut off by his wife, and now we're going to have to take calls about what's happened with that story.
Well, stick around and make sure you visit herbchambers.com for all of your used cars and new car needs.
Oh, radio, I don't miss you whatsoever.
Herb Chambers, they have the worst. This is a very specific comment to Massachusetts I'm going to make, but they have the worst billboards. Have you ever seen their billboards?
It's funny you say that. We were on a drive the other day, and I noticed billboards for what felt like the first time in a while, but no, I haven't seen Herb's ads.
He must have paid his nephew $20 to make them or something, because they're always white background with a stock photo image and then 2 lines that don't make any sense together. For instance, the one that I keep seeing when I get off the highway now is white background, picture of a dog, just a picture of a dog.
Yep.
And it says, "Good boy, great deals."
I'm intrigued. I wonder how far Herb is spread out into the rest of the country. Is he just a New England thing?
I don't know. That's a great question. Apparently he has a yacht the size of like a housing development that's in Boston Harbor, though. So,
well, good for him. Selling cars. Who'd have thought? Point Extra G, Cold Fire. We get a proto version of the now all too common previously on segments that start almost all current TV. It's kind of weird having Majel give us a plot breakdown of the pilot episode. I don't recall her doing that at the start of any other episode. Having the appearance of the caretaker's mate be the backdrop for a Kess episode is a very unexpected way to have this one turn out. Matt Ross, oops. Copy, paste. Copy. Paste. This is Matt Ross's thoughts about Cold Fire.
Cold Fire. This started with an unneeded recap that could have been handled with a line like, hey, there's a signal like the caretaker over there, and the blob said his pal could send us back. Let's check it out.
Check it out.
Kess's powers are a bit scary, and I remember when I first saw this, I was like, what's the green liquid? But then seeing Tuvok convulse was pretty cool. The big problem here is that no one knows anything about Italian horror films, being a Paramount crew. Otherwise, they would know when someone is named Suspiria, they are bad, and also the name. Come on. And the technobabble.
Sporocystian, I think.
Sporocystian hexaprismatic plasmatic fields. Wow. That's at least 50 cents of words right there. Otherwise, this seemed like a waste of time, as it was over super quick. 2 reused space stations out of 5.
Oops. The next comment is, who the hell is this? Artorius says, an episode where the Jedi Padawan gets tempted with the dark side by the seduction of a new Sith master who offers them unlimited power but resists and stays with the old master. Oh, wait, that's a different franchise. Tuvok is one of the best acted characters on the show and really knows how to hit all the subtle Vulcan mannerisms. On another note, Voyager really has a bad reputation and everyone assumes the worst from them. Probably Kazon propaganda. But you would think Tanis would have told Suspiria they didn't kill her hubby. And you would think the telepathic species could figure this out by reading their minds. I guess not. 2 burned plants out of 5. Yeah, you know, it's one of those weird episodes. I didn't even really think about that. Like, I don't know what that says about the episode, but it's like those little details are the stuff that just slipped me by because it never seemed like it was going to amount to anything. Royo says this about Cold Fire.
Oh, did you already send it? Oh,
I did,
okay.
Yeah.
Cold Fire, the sequel to The Caretaker, a plot you guys thought would be dropped for the rest of the show. We were technically right. If this is the only other time.
2 out of 178.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Gary Graham shows up as an intimidating and grumpy elf. Makes me think he'd be a shoo-in for casting call for Elrond in Lord of the Rings. When Kess starts melting faces, her shrieks remind me of the ring wraiths for whatever reason. Gary Graham also acts like a Sith Lord trying to tempt Kess to the dark side, something that requires at least a decent amount of charisma to pull off, which helps save the episode. Overall, I don't really remember this episode as being particularly good, but throughout it, there is a sense of foreboding dread and intrigue that sets it apart from the dull episodes 3 out of 5. And as we all know from the first trailer for Michael Mann's Miami Vice, the meaning of the word foreboding is that bad things are going to happen.
I didn't have the thesaurus on my phone. I agree with that last sentence quite a bit. There's something that sets it apart from the other bad episodes that makes it just a little bit better, even though I don't think it's good.
You know, I know this is not intentional because I mean, maybe it is, but I doubt it. Naming the thing Suspiria kind of fits because this does have a little bit of like an Italian horror feel. Yeah, where there's a lot of intrigue and foreboding dread and stuff. But like once you try to piece the plot together, you're like, I probably shouldn't even bother. Right. I just rather marinate in the weird stuff. Yeah, that's probably. It could be. I mean. I would imagine it's an intentional choice, right? It's because that seems like the kind of thing the show would do. If someone's a fan, this does have enough moments of strange horror in it, but it's the thing that we've talked about that Star Trek always kind of runs into, which is that when Star Trek tries to do certain genre stuff, it cannot do it because Star Trek's tone doesn't allow it to happen. You know? Yeah. The way that you write these kind of Star Trek episodes doesn't really mesh well with Italian horror outside of the most forced of comparisons or something. Like you can't really embrace what makes that genre work in a way that would make a Star Trek episode work at the same time. Right. Yeah. Did I I don't know if I've ever mentioned this before, but I have long had a dream of doing a movie that was a tribute to Italian horror movies where I would shoot the entire thing in Italian and then have the actors dub each other in English, just to really get that feeling of not quite getting the language across.
Brendan Neil Howell says, Coldfire, finally an episode that separates Kes from the Doctor and Neelix, but why does no one get suspicious when Tanis tells the crew the caretaker's mate is named Suspiria, which I'm certain is a horror movie from the 70s. Tanis comes across in the same rapey way a Vulcan who forcibly mind-melded with T'Pol and Fusion does. Kes literally making Tuvok's blood boil is terrifying. 3.5 Ocampan giggles out of 5.
I'm trying to think now, like what... I don't think that there's like any direct reference.
Just
that
Suspiria.
Would be like, yeah, they'd be like, oh, this makes sense that they named this character Suspiria.
Is there no floating bodies in that movie?
Not particularly. Not that I can remember. There's some hanging bodies, or at least one. Mostly witch stuff.
Yep.
Not so much. I don't think there's any telekinesis in it.
Oh no? Okay, I would have expected that.
They should have named the alien Lucio Fulci's The Beyond. That would have been more appropriate.
Undiscovered Mugato is the next one with Coldfire.
Coldfire. You'll get caught up in the cold fire. I played that game recently, for the first time since I was a kid. Crossfire.
Yep.
It gets old real fast.
Yeah. Eventually, you're just both shooting the balls at the star, and it's not going anywhere.
Yeah. Yep. Assuming the guns work correctly, which at this point they might not.
Right, yeah. But, your adult hands just tend to crush the games like that at this point.
Yeah, that's true. The last time I played Hungry Hungry Hippos, I think I killed 5 of the hippos.
Yeah, the hippos their backsides are busted and the marbles are going everywhere, but I
hit that lever and the thing just like exploded like Mega Man.
I'm surprised I've never seen on the internet someone built like a adult custom version, like metal version of Hungry Hungry Hippos or something.
Yeah. Get on it, internet.
Yeah.
They should do one of those mousetrap channels. Should do it.
Yes.
So it's like a Hungry Hungry Hippos board that just catches mice. Oh, that's so depressing. Didn't mind this one.
Those channels kill a ton of mice.
They do.
There's so many mice in these people's barns or whatever they're doing. Yeah.
I mean, are they really any different than any pharmacy? Not pharmacy. The joke is past. Don't mind this one as it's a rare episode that remembers the original premise of the show, but I do mind a few things. One, no one, especially Kes, seems bothered that she just napalmed all the food. Good point. Two, we never see another Ocampa other than Soval. I mean Tanis.
Oh, really? These are the last ones?
I think he means in the episode. He's the only one that we see in the episode. Oh, wait, no, that's not true.
Okay.
No, we do see one more in the episode. Another guy comes to the break room with them, or the conference room.
Oh, I wonder if this is the last time we see any other ones. Maybe.
I'm not sure. What great question.
Yeah.
What's cold about the fire?
No, I'm unsure about that. Yeah.
I do look forward to meeting the others in the Caretaker family, though. Tenebrae, Inferno, and the Caretaker with the crystal plumage. 3 microwave Tuvoks out of 5. Yes.
Vault 13?
I'm trying to think if there's one more. It's the third movie in that Mother of something.
Mother.
Suspiria and Inferno are 2 movies out of a trilogy.
Yeah.
And the third one is Mother of Tears, I think it's called, which is not very good. But Inferno and Suspiria, very good.
Vault 13 Hero says, I hope Wes and Clay were able to inhibit their giggles for this episode. This is the episode that Voyager has to do ever since they wrote themselves into a corner in Caretaker. But when the writers spun the plot wheel, it landed on psychokinetic evil alien child entity. Oh well, at least we get to listen to Neelix's private thoughts during a particularly exciting haircut. Now say Sporocystian energy 3 times fast. 3 Banshee Kes screams out of 5. It might be harder to say Banshee Kes screams than it is to say Sporocystian energy.
Banshee Kes screams.
Banshee Kes screams. Yeah.
Banshee Kes screams.
Sounds like ice cream after a little bit. Grappler John Zorn Oops. This is the last. Is it the last comment? I'll send it to you. You can read it. Go ahead.
Cold Fire. Majel Barrett is back as the voice of Suspiria. Oh, did she do that voice too?
Interesting.
Gary Graham gets ready for his douchebag Vulcan performance with a douchebag Ocampa performance. Kess kills some plants. Meh out of 5.
I think Latte Librarian already commented, but there's another comment here. Coldfire, don't get on Kess's bad side. At least she finally got a little agency. 3 out of 5. Thanks, everybody, for leaving your thoughts about this episode called Coldfire. Middling to middling, low middling, I guess would be the general Patreon consensus. I would say probably a 2.5. What are you going to give this one?
I'm going to go with a 3.
Yeah.
I liked it. It kept my attention. The story kind of gets all wiggly woggly towards the end, but it's fun. Yeah,
Jonas predicted correctly. I'm going to say it's a 3 as well. It was a strong 3 in the first half, as you were talking about, and then it just kind of settled into a regular 3 territory for me, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it might just seem like it's a little bit of a bright spot because we've had a string of 2s for the rest of the season, I think. Like every episode of season 2 has been a 2 for us so far. So this is like one of the few that stuck out a little bit for me.
Yeah. Well, that's going to do it with us. Come back and talk to us for the halftime show.
That's it. Thank you very much for listening. Let us know what ads you'd like us to run on this podcast. Let us know what the weather is and how traffic is doing in your part of the country at this very moment. And let us know if Herb Chambers likes to sell cars wherever you live, because we'd be interested.
Yes, we need to do more press for him in his car sales empire.
Oh, cars. I guess we're done. Anything you want to mention? Patreon.com/The Pensky File to support the show. If you want to go there, you support the show. That's where you go. Patreon.com/The Pensky File. Clay, do you have anything you want to say before we wrap this one up?
Both my issues of Batman White Knight Red Hood are out right now on the comic book stands. If you would be so kind as to pick one up, I'd be much obliged. Mm-hmm. Amanda and I are still trucking through the second string of Stephen King on Patreon. We're almost done. We've only got a few left. It's getting late in the year.
Yeah, you're in the fall now,
which is a little depressing. We realized. I guess we're probably going to be into September when this comes out. But our last one in August, which was Sometimes They Come Back, we realized that we've done 3 Stephen King ghost car movies in a row.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Sometimes They Come Back isn't an evil car, but it technically is an evil car, so it's that one.
Yeah.
In a row. We did that one, Maximum Overdrive, and Christine. So we've been spending a lot of time in the automotive world of Stephen King lately.
Excellent. He certainly had. Certainly had a lot of car movies, I guess. He's certainly. Yeah. I guess the main thing I've learned from you guys covering that is that there's a lot of Stephen King. Like
so much.
What a prodigious creator of content.
Yeah. That's the thing. Sometimes They Come Back. When we get into that one, the thing is, it's like one of those. The Twitter joke where it's like, I put 1,000 hours of Star Trek Voyager into an AI program.
Yeah,
and this is the script that it wrote. It's literally that, which it's like we took every Stephen King short story and fed it into an AI computer, and it came out with Sometimes They Come Back. It's like every single trope from every single Stephen King thing in one very boring place.
Any regrets about covering the Stephen King second string? They've been good.
I've actually been enjoying it. Because it's a lot of movies I haven't seen.
Yeah.
And I have been fascinated by how similar they are, and kind of the thing that the conclusion we come to on Sometimes They Come Back anyway is the better ones seem to be the ones that aren't so plot heavy. Mm-hmm. Like the ones where they kind of get wonky are the ones where it's like, Sometimes They Come Back is like, there's a guy and he's dealing with a traumatic past because his brother was killed by these greasers who then got hit by a train. And now there's greasers showing up who are just like the ones that got hit by a train. Are they ghosts? We don't know. We'll have to figure out if they're ghosts. Well, it turns out they it's a lot of like plotty stuff.
Yeah.
And not a lot of just like sitting in the character stuff. Also, they tend to be better if they're directed by genre legends. It's not a hard and fast rule because George Romero did The Dark Half, and that one isn't that great.
Yeah.
But John Carpenter's Christine, there's about a thimbleful of plot in that movie, but just the atmosphere is so good that it's worth watching.
Yeah. Yeah.
And related to this episode, September's movie will be Firestarter. So got that to look forward to.
A lot of fire themed in September. Patreon.com/thepensky.
Twisted Firestarter.
Thank you very much for being our prodigy. I suppose he couldn't really fit that one in, but listen, I still like those songs. I can't listen to them without feeling embarrassed. So I'll shut the windows if I'm listening to them or something, but I still enjoy them. Thanks very much, everybody. We'll see you next time with whatever the next episode is, which I'm going to click. I guess it's maneuvers. So we'll see you then. Bye.